Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani says the delegation for dialogue with the Taliban will be formed by 10th of March. Addressing the National Assembly session in Kabul, Ghani said the negotiation team will defend the country's values under the government's umbrella.
The Afghan president said there is a need for a transparent mechanism to release the Taliban prisoners. Ghani directed lawmakers to choose 2 members from the upper house and 5 from the lower house of the parliament. Ghani's remarks come after the Taliban said Kabul administration will be responsible if intra-Afghan talks are delayed beyond the set date. Group's spokesperson Sohail Shaheen said Taliban are willing to negotiate if the prisoners are released as per the Doha agreement with the US. Shaheen said the group's agenda is ready and its negotiation team will go ahead as agreed in the deal. Earlier, US President Donald Trump said the Taliban could possibly seize power after the United States withdraws from Afghanistan. Speaking at the White House, Trump said the US cannot stay in Afghanistan for the next 20 years. The president said the Afghan government will eventually have to protect the country itself.
In India, police have attacked an anti-citizenship act demonstration and beat people at Mumbai bar. 83 people have been killed in countrywide demonstrations against the controversial law in the last 3 months. Protesters said the police assaulted them late at night after they had fallen asleep. Meanwhile, former Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said the situation in post-CAA India is very grim and morose. In an op-ed, Singh said the state institutions have abandoned their duty to protect citizens. Indian forces have arrested 750 civilians in occupied Kashmir under the controversial Public Safety Act since 5th of August. Under the Act, opposition forces can detain any individual for up to 2 years without a trial. The Kashmiri media said Indian forces arrested 3 young men under the Act yesterday and sent them to jails in Jammu and Islamabad districts. It said those arrested include prominent lawyers, pro-freedom politicians, rights activists, students and civilians. Indian forces have arrested over 13,000 civilians, including minors, in the last 6 months. The valley has been reeling under India's curfew and the communications blackout for the last 216 days. Turkey says it will start joint patrols with Russia in Syria's Idlib on 15th of March. The joint patrols are part of a ceasefire deal agreed on between the 2 sides in Moscow on Thursday. In a statement, Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said the truce is still holding and no violations have been witnessed yet. Meanwhile, Russian news agencies said there were 7 cases of shootings reported in Latakia and 9 in Aleppo. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced in a 3-month offensive by Syrian government forces. The US has blocked the adoption of the UN Security Council statement supporting a Syrian ceasefire brokered by Russia and Turkey. Diplomats said Washington called the Russian proposal premature during the Council's closed-door meeting. Turkey says the European Union is using migrants as a political tool and allowing international law to be trampled. In a statement, the Turkish Foreign Ministry said the EU's support for Greece over migrants' crisis shows its disregard its own laws and values. Despite the clashes with Greek police, tens of thousands of migrants have been trying to get into Greece since Turkey opened its border. After the development, Athens declared the end of the deal between the EU and Turkey to limit migration to Europe. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis accused Ankara of assisting the ongoing surge of migrants at the border. After several days waiting, migrants have started losing hope to reach Europe.
My eyes and my nose are hurting. They're killing us. There was no food, nothing there. I've stayed 3 nights now. I have to go back. Now I am trying to take ticket if I can go now, otherwise I will go back tomorrow morning by bus. Normally I am living in Kankuri. Now I am going back to Istanbul and we'll see how it happens.
The US has blocked the adoption of the UN Security Council statement supporting a Syrian ceasefire brokered by Russia and Turkey. Diplomats said Washington called the Russian proposal premature during the Council's closed-door meeting. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vesely Nebenzia, said various countries took note and welcomed the agreement. But he said it wasn't possible because of one delegation's position. Meanwhile, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar says there have been no violations of the ceasefire agreed on with Russia in Syria's Idlib. As the truce came into effect on Friday, Syria's war-ravaged Idlib province has witnessed a relative calm for the first day in months. The UN says Yemen is at a critical juncture as there are equal chances of the country resuming its political process and of slipping back into the conflict. Speaking to media, UN envoy to Yemen Martin Griffiths said the country cannot wait for peace any longer. During his one-day visit to Yemen, Griffiths said he will meet local authorities, tribal chiefs, civil society, women and displaced Yemenis. He also called for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and start of a comprehensive, inclusive de-escalation process. Yemen has been engulfed in a civil war since 2015 as the government led by Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi and the Houthi rebels continue to fight. In Italy, 49 more people have died from the new coronavirus in the last 24 hours, bringing the death toll to nearly 200. Meanwhile, 28 new deaths from the outbreak were reported in China, taking the total to 3,070. The number of cases from the virus has topped 100,000 worldwide. More in this report.
Coronavirus scare continues to spread as new confirmed cases of the disease reported in regions outside China are increasing. In France, 200 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed, while India and South Korea also reported an increase in the number of infections. 21 people have tested positive for coronavirus on board the cruise ship stranded off the coast of the U.S. state of California. The World Health Organization says the virus has the capacity to spread and may last till summer.
We do not know yet what the activity or the behavior of this virus will be in different climatic conditions. We have to assume that the virus will continue to have the capacity to spread, and it's a false hope to say, yes, it will just disappear in the summertime like influenza virus. We hope it does. That would be a godsend, but we can't make that assumption.
Global stocks have tumbled and oil prices have collapsed as investors panic over the expected damage of the coronavirus to global economic growth. Wall Street stocks also suffered another bruising session, with petroleum producers and banks especially hard hit.
What we've clearly seen here is a number of weeks of selling. There's definitely panic within the financial community to a certain extent because stocks are trading at a discount of 20, 30, 40%. And we have to realize that 12 trading days ago, or 14, we were at a record high. So big trees fall hard, you know what I mean?
Millions of students are still out of schools and universities worldwide, as many countries have shut down academic institutions amid coronavirus fears.
Saudi Arabia has opened the holy site of Kaaba in Mecca for non-Umrah pilgrims. The kingdom recently put a rare freeze on pilgrimages to Mecca and Medina amid the new coronavirus outbreak. King Salman bin Abdulaziz issued an order to open the Makkah for visitors to circumambulate around the Kaaba. Officials at the Grand Mosque have asked pilgrims to adhere to precautionary procedures and cooperate with the authorities. Last week, Riyadh reported its first 2 cases of the new coronavirus. Venezuela has accused the U.S. of devising a plan to bring war and terrorism to the country. In a meeting in Caracas, President Nicolas Maduro said Washington is looking for ways to destabilize the country. Maduro said Brazil was Washington's agent in the region and President Jair Bolsonaro was backed by the U.S. He called upon Brazil's people and the armed forces to block any such adventures against Venezuela. The U.S. and over 50 other countries recognized opposition leader Juan Guaido as the country's legitimate president. Despite crushing U.S. sanctions, Maduro remains in power and is backed by Venezuela's military as well as Russia, China and Cuba. In Brazil, a death toll in flooding and mudslides has risen to 31. Meteorological Institute of Brazil had said the state of Sao Paulo has registered its most intense rainfall in 77 years. Authorities said the remains of 25 people have been discovered in the towns of Guarujá, Santos and São Vicente. Officials say the rescue workers are combing the towns for 49 people who are still missing. They say most of the missing are residents of the hillside favela of Villabiana, where homes fell apart under the force of mudslides and rain. The government has announced the shipment of 21 tons of supplies for about 500 people living in temporary shelters. Local government said 2 firefighters were killed in rescue attempts in Sao Paulo state. The World Health Organization says it still needs $20 million to contain Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The last patient being treated for the disease in the country was discharged on Tuesday. WHO Assistant Director General for Emergency Response, Ibrahima Sose Fowler, says the end of the outbreak will be declared on 12th of April. But he said it's critical to maintain surveillance and rapid response capacity in order to quickly diagnose any new cases. The global health body said it needs funds to maintain the team on the ground because Ebola is a matter of global health security. Ebola has killed over 2,000 people in Congo since the outbreak began in August 2018. The U.S. has created a special envoy for Africa's Sahel region to counter rising violence from groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The State Department spokesman said the Sahel is one of the places in the continent where the situation is rapidly deteriorating. He said envoy Peter Pham started his new role earlier this week. Pham has been serving as U.S. Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region of Africa since November 2018. The U.S. currently has around 6,000 military personnel in Africa. The State Department's latest counterterrorism report said attacks by militant groups have been on the rise in the region. The UK says it will investigate the security of the country's 5G mobile network amid concerns about the role of Chinese company Huawei. The Parliamentary Defense Committee will lead the inquiry. The lawmakers said they will investigate the possibility of abuse before the technology is introduced into the British infrastructure. In a statement, Huawei said it will work with the committee to answer their questions. Prime Minister Boris Johnson handed Huawei a limited role in Britain's 5G mobile network in January, despite US concerns. Welcome back. American aerospace company SpaceX has nailed its 50th successful rocket landing at Cape Canaveral. The Falcon rocket returned after delivering station supplies for NASA's International Space Station. The Falcon took off with nearly 2,000 kgs of equipment and returned a few minutes later, accompanied by sonic booms. It was the 20th station delivery by SpaceX since it began shipments in 2012. The aerospace giant has transported over 45,000 kilograms of goods to the orbiting outpost and returned nearly that much back to Earth. Australians are enjoying the annual Balloon Spectacular event in the capital city of Canberra. Hundreds of people witnessed around 30 hot air balloons taking the shape on the lawn of Old Parliament House. This year, the almost 40-meter-high Tyrannosaurus Rex balloon was the star of the attraction. At dawn, the balloons will be launched daily from the forecourt of the house and will float over Canberra. The Balloon Spectacular will run every day until 15th of March. The event is complete with on-site entertainment, fun activities and food. The new coronavirus impact has hit every player in the entertainment industry around the globe. The outbreak has landed on the cusp of several major international film events. More in this report.
As the coronavirus continues to spread across the world, the impact on the entertainment industry has started with the pushback of the Hollywood movie's release. The global release of the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die, has already been delayed from April to November. Actor and writer Matt Donnelly said this could be just the start of a ripple effect across the entire entertainment industry.
If you look at a country like China, which has basically padlocked their cinemas and encouraged the entire population to stay indoors, the losses are significant and they're immediate. I think the latest estimates we have that by the start of summer, Hollywood will have lost a potential $5 billion at the box office.
China, France, and Italy have banned people from gathering in crowds to contain the spread of the virus. If the US adopts a similar policy, it's not just the cinema goers who will lose out, but also actors and production units.
The possibility for transmission is everywhere. So I think physical production is not only, sort of a hotbed of where this disease could spread, but it also places the company into a really difficult area of liability.
Movie theaters have been closed in China, Japan, South Korea, and parts of Italy in a bid to stem the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, Disney has also axed an event planned to promote the European launch of its streaming service Disney+.
The International Trade Committee of the EU Parliament has extended a generalized system of preferences plus status for Pakistan. The extension has enabled the country to continue enjoying preferential duties on exports for the next 2 years. The development is in recognition of Islamabad's progress in enacting new laws and developing new institutions for implementation of 27 core conventions of the GSP+. The committee said the major reason for this extension is the implementation of National Action Plan for Human Rights. Last month, the ANTI-CAA and GSP Working Party of the European Council discussed the report on Pakistan's third biennial assessment. Pakistan's Commerce Ministry has thanked the EU for providing the unilateral trade concession. The group of the world's top 20 economies have pledged to take measures to protect fiscal growth against shocks in response to the COVID-19. In a joint statement, the group said it will take appropriate measures to maintain the resilience of the financial system. G20 chair Saudi Arabia welcomed the plans put forward by the finance ministers and the central bank governors of member countries. In February meeting in Riyadh, the G20 ministers agreed to monitor the virus and address the associated risks. Since then, the pandemic has sent world financial markets reeling and prompted a 0.5% rate cut by the US Federal Reserve. Earlier on Tuesday, G7 finance leaders made a similar pledge to maintain strong, sustainable growth amidst the pandemic. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.